We've always been a family that's done everything right, but doing everything right doesn't seem to be enough anymore in Britain. We work hard, we pay our taxes. My husband Mark and I, we've never asked for much. A safe home, good schools for the kids, maybe a holiday once a year if we're lucky. The basics, the things our parents had. But for the first time, I'm looking at my children, at 8-year-old Lily and 10-year-old Tom, and I'm not sure if I can give them the life they deserve. Not here, not anymore. Every week it feels like the country we call home is squeezing us out. The numbers just don't add up. That was Sarah, a primary school teacher from just outside Manchester. Every time the bills come through the door, I feel sick, she admits. Her husband Mark is a self-employed electrician. On paper, they are the backbone of Britain, a hard-working, middle-income family. Yet their story is becoming terrifyingly common. It's a story about a quiet, creeping dread that settles in when the bills arrive. It's a story about numbers. And one of the most important numbers for families like Sarah and Mark's right now is 3.8%. In the year to August 2025, the UK's headline inflation rate stood at 3.8%. That might sound like a small number, but here's what it means in practice. A family's weekly food shop that cost £60 2 years ago is now closer to £78. A tank of petrol that once cost £70 is now edging toward £85. Even something as simple as a school uniform, shoes, trousers, and a blazer, now adds up to well over £150 per child, compared to under £120 some time back. These increases might not make headlines on their own, but together they pile up, turning everyday essentials into monthly financial headaches. Housing is no better. Average private rents jumped 7.7% in just 1 year. That means a 2-bed flat in Manchester that used to go for £950 a month is now closer to £1,025. In London, the same rise pushes a modest 1-bed flat from £1,600 up toward £1,725, eating up hundreds of extra pounds annually that families can't afford. Food prices, too, have remained stubbornly high. A loaf of bread that once cost £1 is now £1.25. A bag of pasta that was 75p is now closer to £1.10. A pack of chicken breasts that was £4 is now edging toward £5.20. These small jumps, multiplied across dozens of items in a trolley, leave households shocked at the checkout. And then there are energy bills. While they've come down slightly from the record highs of 2022, the average annual household bill is still over £1,700, more than 50% higher than pre-crisis levels. For many families, that's the difference between saving a little each month and falling behind on payments. While that's down from the terrifying peaks, specific costs for families are still surging. In March 2025, for example, the inflation rate for households with children was running higher than the national average. A few percentage points might not sound like a seismic shock, but when you're already stretched thin, it isn't just a statistic. It's the school shoes you can't afford. It's the heating you're scared to turn on. It's the gnawing anxiety that your income, the salary you work so hard for, no longer covers the basics in the country you love. This isn't just about abstract economic forces. This is about the on-the-ground reality for millions. So we're going to follow Sarah and Mark's family as they navigate this new economic storm. We'll break down exactly where this squeeze is coming from, the crushing costs of housing, food, and energy. We'll scrutinize the government support on offer and ask, is it a genuine lifeline or just a sticking plaster? And finally, we'll confront the same harsh reality Sarah and Mark are facing, a reality that forces them to question whether the British dream of a stable, secure family life is slipping out of reach. Is the UK becoming too expensive for families? Let's find out. First, the roof over your head. For generations, a stable home was the cornerstone of British family life. Today, for many, it's a primary source of financial terror. This isn't just a London problem, it's a national crisis. For Sarah and Mark, moving is expensive and buying is a distant fantasy. They're paying more than ever for a home they'll never own. Next, the weekly shop. The cost of food has soared, turning everyday groceries into a careful calculation. A typical basket of basics has jumped nearly 30% in less than 3 years. For Sarah, it means swapping fresh chicken for frozen and making tough choices at the checkout. These aren't luxuries being cut. They're small, everyday joys and nutritional basics. And then there's energy. Even with price caps, bills remain far higher than before. For families in less insulated homes, the annual bill can climb towards £2,500. The heating or eating debate is now a daily calculation for millions. Housing, food, and energy, the three pillars of a stable life, are all under threat. For Sarah and Mark, and millions like them, the squeeze is real. The rent, the grocery bill, the gas meter, all tell the same story. You're running faster and faster, just to stand still. But if housing, food, and energy are all pulling families under, what happens when the safety nets meant to catch them don't hold? Behind these numbers is a human cost that doesn't show up on a bank statement. This is the human cost, cutting a deep scar across British family life. The most immediate impact is a terrifying sense of financial fragility. The safety net families once took for granted has been shredded. 1 in 3 UK parents can't afford an unexpected bill of just £850. For Sarah and Mark, this isn't hypothetical. Last month, their car failed its MOT. The repair bill was £900. A few years ago, that would have been an annoyance. Now there are no savings to dip into. That money is now swallowed by rent, food, and energy. The bill forced a choice between essential transport and falling behind on rent. This fragility pushes families towards debt. Sarah and Mark had to put the repair on a high-interest credit card. For the first time, they used the same card for groceries. They know they're stepping onto a debt escalator, where interest payments eat into their budget. For single parents, the crisis is even more brutal. 64% say they couldn't cover that same unexpected cost. This isn't about cutting back on treats. It's about the lights going out or the phone being cut off. The human cost is a constant, pervasive anxiety. It's a mental load that is exhausting and relentless. It changes you. This is the unspoken damage of the affordability crisis. It doesn't just empty your bank account, it empties your spirit. In the face of this mounting crisis, what help is available? A series of support measures have been rolled out, but the crucial question is, are they a genuine, long-term solution, or just temporary fixes? When we look closely at the support available to families like Sarah and Mark's in September 2025, a worrying pattern emerges. There have been headline-grabbing one-off cost of living payments, with a £250 payment announced for low-income households in September 2025 to help with rising expenses. For any family struggling, £250 is, without question, better than nothing. It's a tank of petrol for Mark's van. It's new school shoes for Lily and Tom. It provides a moment of breathing space, but that's all it is, a moment. When you set that £250 against an annual rent increase of £1,200, its impact evaporates almost instantly. Critics argue these one-off payments are like bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. They provide fleeting relief, but do nothing to fix the fundamental leaks. Then there's the support woven into the welfare state, like child benefit. From April 2025, these payments were increased by 1.7%. For Sarah and Mark's 2 children, this translates to a weekly payment of £26.05 for their first child, Tom, and £17.25 for their second, Lily. Annually, that's a welcome boost. But here lies the core of the problem. A 1.7% increase in benefits looks small next to an inflation rate for households with children that has been running higher than the national average. In real terms, the support isn't keeping pace with the cost of living, meaning every year, families reliant on this benefit are falling further behind. Perhaps the most significant support has been the expansion of funded childcare, offering 30 hours per week for eligible working parents. This policy has been a game-changer for many, potentially saving families thousands a year and enabling parents, often mothers, to work. For Sarah's family, this has been vital. However, on the ground, the reality is more complex. Eligible is the key word, as the support is for working parents. Furthermore, many parents report that funded hours don't always cover the full cost, with providers asking for extra payments for food and other essentials. For Sarah, the money saved on childcare has been immediately reallocated to cover the rising costs of housing and food. Her family's financial position has, at best, stood still. Finally, there's the Household Support Fund, a pot of money given to local authorities to distribute to the most vulnerable. This allows for targeted, discretionary help, a grant for a cooker or a voucher for bills, and has been a crucial last resort safety net. But its very nature highlights the wider problem. It's a finite emergency fund for a crisis that, for millions, is becoming the new normal. When you add it all up, a one-off payment that's spent before it arrives, benefit increases that lag behind inflation, and childcare support that is eroded by other rising costs. The conclusion is hard to avoid. For many families, the current framework of government support feels less like a safety net and more like a sieve, with their financial security draining away through the holes. And that leaves families like Sarah and Mark facing an impossible choice. For months, it was a feeling, a background hum of anxiety. But now, for Sarah and Mark, it has become a conversation at the kitchen table, surrounded by a mess of bills and bank statements. They have done the maths. They have accounted for Mark's fluctuating income and Sarah's steady salary. They've factored in the child benefit increase and childcare savings. They've mapped out their rent, council tax, food bills, and energy costs. No matter how they arrange the numbers, the conclusion is the same. They are going backwards. This is the point where a family must look at the hard, cold facts and admit that their life is no longer financially sustainable. It's the realization that doing everything right, working hard, being responsible, is no longer a guarantee of getting by, let alone getting ahead. Their income, once enough for a comfortable life, has been effectively cut by the silent thief of inflation, which has outstripped both their wages and the support designed to help them. The emotional impact of this is profound. There is anger, a sense of injustice that the rules of the game have suddenly changed. There is fear, a raw terror about the future. But underneath it all, there is a deep and overwhelming sadness. And out of that sadness, the unspoken question finally finds its voice. Can we even afford to live here anymore? Sarah doesn't answer immediately. She just looks out of the window, into the dark garden where their children's swing set sits. This is their home. Their children were born here. Their friends are here. Their parents are just a short drive away. Their entire world is tied to this place, to this country. The question hangs in the air, heavy and impossible. What would we even do? Where would we go? They start talking about friends who have emigrated, a former colleague of Mark's who moved his family to Australia and talks about a better work-life balance, a cousin of Sarah's who relocated to Canada. These were once stories from another life. Now they are potential blueprints. They find themselves scrolling through articles about the cost of living in Perth or Toronto. It feels like a betrayal of their community, of their family, of the very idea of what it means to be British. This isn't about chasing a lavish lifestyle. It's about the basics. The ability to provide their children with a stable home without the constant fear of a rent increase pushing them out. It's about being able to afford a weekly food shop that includes fresh fruit and vegetables. It's about giving their children opportunities, a school trip, swimming lessons, without having to go into debt. It's about reclaiming a life free from the suffocating, day-to-day anxiety about money. This is the harsh reality the cost of living crisis has created. It has forced ordinary British families to confront an extraordinary choice: to stay in the country they love and watch their quality of life decline, or to abandon everything they know in search of a future that is simply affordable. The country they call home is beginning to feel like a place that has priced them out of their own lives. This is the reality for millions of families across the United Kingdom. It's a quiet crisis playing out in kitchens and living rooms every single day. If this story resonates with you, if you see your own struggles reflected in Sarah and Mark's journey, please share this video to raise awareness. The more we talk about this, the harder it is for our leaders to ignore, and we want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments below. What is the single biggest cost that is affecting your family right now? Your story matters. The story of Sarah and Mark is not an isolated incident. It is a snapshot of a nation at a crossroads. We've seen how escalating costs for housing, food, and energy are systematically dismantling family budgets. We have examined the government's response and found it is struggling to contain a long-term systemic crisis. And we have witnessed the profound human cost, as hard-working families are pushed to the brink, forced to question their very future in their own country. The UK is becoming a nation where the fundamentals are increasingly unaffordable for the many, not just the few. The core promise of British society, that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can build a decent, secure life for your family, is being tested like never before. The social contract feels frayed, and for a growing number of people it feels broken. As families like Sarah and Mark's are forced to have conversations that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago, we're all left with a final, lingering question. It's a question that goes far beyond economics and touches the very soul of the nation. As the gap widens between the income people earn and the cost of a dignified life, we have to ask, is that promise of a better future for our children, the very bedrock of a hopeful society, now broken? If you found this video breakdown insightful, please like, subscribe and share to push this video to a wider audience. Thanks for watching.